Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Jessica Nicole. I'm a self-published author of YA and New A fantasy romance novels, and in today's video we are actually going to be starting a reading vlog, but this is not going to be just any reading vlog. I'm going to be reading 3 books in this vlog. I'm actually going to be reading a trilogy, the Caraval trilogy. I've only ever done one other reading vlog on this channel, but I really like watching them, so I figure I'll be doing more of them this year as I'm trying to be more consistent here on YouTube. Basically, this story, I knew nothing about it going into it, like nothing at all, but the plan for me, a series that I'm planning on reading this year, was already planning on reading last year, is the Once Upon a Broken Heart series by the same author, Stephanie Garber. And I heard through the grapevine that there are spoilers for Caraval in that second series. So if I ever wanted to read Caraval, I should read it before. And I hadn't heard about Caraval. Like, I had never heard too much about it, honestly, even though I know it's like a big deal. I don't know how I had never heard about it, but so I wasn't really planning on reading it. But when I went on Amazon and read the synopsis for it, it sounded really interesting. So basically, it centers around these 2 sisters. From what I've gathered so far, I've read about a fourth of the way through the book so far. I've read the first 100 pages, so I'm kind of getting to where the action started, which this book kind of starts off on action. Like, it's not slow at all. It moves pretty quickly, which I really enjoy. It makes it more fun to read, and it makes it, it makes the reading experience more enjoyable, and it makes the book fast-paced, which I really like. But basically, this series centers around 2 sisters. They've grown up in like this really horrible environment, the Dragna sisters. They are about a year apart, and so they're best friends. They're kind of like mirrors of each other, which I like this with the sister trope, how they're kind of opposite. So you have the one sister, Scarlet. She's older. She's sort of the more responsible, reasonable, analytical sister of the 2, and this first book has been told in her point of view so far, so I'm thinking it's going to just be her point of view in this book. And then you have the younger sister, Tella, or Donatella is her name, and she's the more impulsive, reckless, fun-loving of the 2. And so Caraval is basically this big, like, carnival show performance type game thing. I'm still figuring it out, but it's run by Master Legend, and he never visits the same place twice. So he's already been to the island that Scarlet and her sister live on, but Scarlet has been writing him letters since she was a kid, trying to get invitations to the show, because you can only get in with a ticket. And so she has been writing to him for years. He's never responded, and now she's about to get married. She's engaged, and she tells him that in the last letter she writes him. And he finally sends her 3 tickets, one for her, one for her sister, because every time she writes, she's saying how much her sister would love to see the show, and one for her new fiance. Well, fast forward, the 3rd ticket doesn't end up being used by her new fiance. It's used by Julian, this like mysterious sailor who I'm convinced has some kind of secret ulterior motive or something going on. We're gonna figure it out, I'm sure, but I'm like, I don't know, I don't trust him. He's been very helpful so far, but even Scarlet says like he's just helping her because he wants something from her. The first time she met him, he was like in a little entanglement with her sister, and now he's being really flirty with her, but like he's been to Caraval before, because he's telling her all these things, all these rules about Caraval, and she's like, how do you know all this? And he finally tells her he's been before and he needs to come back. I don't know why he needs to come back or what he's after, but like, I don't trust him so far, and that's just where we are. They have made it to the island where Caraval is being held this year. It's Legend's like private island, and Scarlet has been separated from her sister because Scarlett's she's afraid of their dad. They're both afraid of their dad, but Scarlett is more afraid, so she wasn't even going to use the tickets because it's too risky. If their dad finds out that they're sneaking off the island, like, he's going to hurt them. So basically, Julian and Tella kidnap Scarlett, and so Scarlett has been out cold. So Julian drops Tella off at the island where Caraval is taking place, and then he goes back for Scarlett. So now Julian and Scarlett are traveling together, and Tella is already inside Caraval, and so she's basically trying to find her sister. That's her main goal. She figures if they stay one day, they can get back to the island in time for her wedding still, which she's seeing her wedding. Scarlett is seeing her wedding as sort of like her ticket away from her dad and her sisters as well. But I don't know. I don't think they're going to make it back in time because we got a lot of book left. So I don't think that wedding's going to happen. But yeah, I'm just going to keep reading. The plan is to read these 3 books this month. And that's what this reading vlog is about. So here we go. I'm just going to keep going.
Okay, so I was instantly swept away by the story. I loved it so much. It was so imaginative and just such a fairy tale. It reminded me of reading Cinderella or Beauty and the Beast or one of those old, just magical stories when I was little. The way that Stephanie Garber was able to craft this story and this world and these characters just instantly had me completely unable to put this book down, and I flew through the whole series really, but especially book 1. So Caraval is the first book in the trilogy, and it follows the story of Scarlett and her younger sister Tella as they are trying to navigate this magical world and this magical game of Caraval. So it's like this beautiful, sought after, once in a lifetime experience, but it comes with a cost. I liked the kind of dark underbelly that existed, and it was always just kind of like lurking just beyond the surface of all the glitz and the glamour and the beauty. In this book, we are following Scarlett. Mostly, all the chapters are told from her point of view, and I can relate to Scarlett so much as a character. She's so practical and caring and kind, and it's mentioned later on in the series, but I love how Scarlett loves. It's so apparent in the first book. Even it's our first glimpse at it, and it's just apparent, and of course it's, pivotal to the plot of all 3 books, really. And so this is me taking it to work. This is me annotating a ton. I lost count of how many quotes and instances I just highlighted in this book because I love what Stephanie Garber is able to do with words. It's so magical.
So it's been a couple days. I am on page 296 and I'm on chapter 31. So much has happened. So much craziness has happened. I assumed, okay, so in this book, we kind of learn about the history of Caraval and how it's connected to Scarlett and her family. I thought that the boy that Scarlett is traveling with while they're trying to find her sister, because like when they get to Caraval, her sister, I think, yeah, it says it on the jacket. I'm trying to just spoil anything. It says it like it's in the summary of the book. Her sister kind of gets kidnapped. She's like the mystery of Caraval this year. Every year there's like a game to be played, a riddle to be solved. The mystery this year is to find Tella, Scarlett's little sister. So the guy that kind of got them to Caraval, Julian, I thought that he was like behind all of this, I still think that. But yeah, I still think that, but they're working together. They're trying to find her sister, and all kinds of craziness is going down. Just the plot twists in like these last couple of chapters have thrown me for a loop, and I've just been flying through this book. It's super easy to read. It's YA, which is kind of why I love YA, honestly. It's like super easy to read and super entertaining. There's always a bunch of drama. That's why I like reading it and why I like writing it. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna be through with this in like the next couple of days, and I will be back with my final thoughts on Caraval before I move into Legendary. Okay, so this is just a check-in. It's been a couple of days. Not a couple of days. I don't even know. It's been a day. I finished Caraval today on my lunch break. I really enjoyed this. I'm gonna save like my final ratings of the series for the end of this vlog. I will say about my assumption with Julian, I was right, but I was also wrong. So if you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't read it, then I'm not spoiling anything for you. But yeah. Initial thoughts, I did actually really enjoy the story. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. I will say that I think Stephanie Garber kind of fumbled the bag a little bit with these last chapters, like the last 4 or 5 chapters. It was a little convoluted, a little bit confusing, but yeah, everything else leading up to that was great and made up for it. So overall, I did enjoy this book. I'm gonna jump right into Legendary soon. So here we go.
So, not gonna lie, going into book 2 from book 1, my expectations were so incredibly high, and Legendary did not disappoint. I loved everything about this book. I ended up loving this one even more than the first one, and I knew from this map that I was going to be completely enthralled with this book from the get-go, basically, and I'm so glad that I was right.
Okay, so I'm here with a quick update on Legendary. I haven't gotten very far in, however, I am like 100 plus pages in, so I'm a decent percentage of the way through the book. I think we are heading into the rising action of the story. I think this is a theme with me and these books centered around sisters, or even just like books where the first book series anyway, where the first book is centered around one character and the second book is centered around a different character, because the first book was centered around the oldest sister. Caraval was centered around Scarlet, and Legendary is looking like it's going to be centered around Tella. Yeah, it's centered around Tella because we're getting Tella's point of view in all the chapters, where last book we got Scarlet's. And so like I didn't like Tella's character in the first book. She seemed very shallow and self-centered to me, and to an extent she's still like that in this book, but I like her character more because I think we get like a deeper perspective of her, you know, through her own point of view, expressing her own thoughts and feelings, rather than looking at her through the lens of Scarlet and the way Scarlet sees the world. So I will say, like, I'm liking Tella more. I was kind of like not excited to read this because it's the same way I was with For the Wolf and For the Throne, when I didn't want to read book 2 because of Neve, and then I ended up loving it. So yeah, I'm loving this so far. I'm getting a little bit more fantasy vibes, like we're getting deeper into the fantasy lore with this one, and I think we're getting a little bit of fake dating. Like I feel like that's on the horizon with one of the male characters. I'm not going to say it just in case it spoils things, because I think this character is in the next book series that Stephanie Garber has, just from like little spoilers I've read, but I don't want to spoil anything. So with one of the male characters and with Tella, so I think we're getting like a fake dating situation. She's already got some kind of romance situation going on with another character in the book, so I think we're getting a little love triangle plus fake dating. I love those tropes. I love both of them as long as they are done right. And I'm excited to see how Stephanie Garber handles both of them. So here we go. So I'm about 100 pages farther in, or close enough anyway. And I am about to start reading again for the day. One thing that I love about this book is book 2 in the series, and the stakes just feel so much higher than they did in the first book. And since I'm writing the second book in a series right now, it's really, reading this is teaching me a lot about that, about how not to let your series get stale. And this doesn't feel stale. She's introducing so many new elements, and this, like I said, the stakes are so much higher. So I'm really enjoying reading this. It doesn't feel repetitive, even though some things are the same, since she's put a new spin on it and the stakes are higher. It doesn't feel like I'm reading the same story again, and I'm really enjoying it so far. Alright, so I am on chapter 38 right now. There are 43 chapters in this book, including, well, 44 chapters, with the prologue and epilogue. I think it was 40, no, it was 45 with the prologue and epilogue. So, anyways, I am nearing the end. All that said to say, I'm nearing the end of the story. So much has happened, and I'm gonna leave my final thoughts for the end of the video when I finish book 3, but the game has been stepped up, and for the second book, and I do like this one better than the first one. I did really enjoy the first one, but I am enjoying this one a little bit more. And yeah, so I'm gonna keep reading. I'll also say that I think out of the two sisters, I like Tella better. I feel like Scarlet is who I am and Tella's like who I want to be. So anyways, chapter 38, here we go. Alright, y'all. So it's actually been like, I started filming this video last month, basically, and I'm just now about to finish it up. So let me explain. So in order for me to hit my goal of the 50 books that I want to read this year, I figured out that I wasn't going to be able to read all 3 of the Caraval books in February like I had planned. So I have since read 3 other books for the end of February and the beginning of March. It is March the 13th, and so I'm just now about to pick Finale back up. I read a little bit of Finale, so I'm a little bit into the story now, and I finished Legendary. I liked Legendary so much more than I liked Caraval. I liked Caraval, but Legendary was even better, and so I hope Finale is just even better than that. So far, I like it. I like the reveals that we're getting. We've added like a couple new characters that I'm intrigued by. We've had like some interesting stuff go down that I just did not see coming, and I like that the chapters are alternating between the two sisters' points of view, because Caraval was all from Scarlet's point of view, and then Legendary was all from Tella's point of view, and then in Finale we are getting both of their points of view. So I'm going to really focus on powering through this, because for the sake of this video, and also because I really enjoy this series and I really want to see how it ends. So I'm going to take it to work with me today. I'm going to just basically, whenever I have a spare minute, I'm going to read, and I'll check in with you guys with any updates, spoiler free, of course. I have gotten so much farther in the book along this week. It's been like 4 days, but these are little like sticky notes. I was reading at work today on my break, and I found like so many places that I wanted to highlight, but I had left my highlighter at home, so I just tabbed them with sticky notes. This story is getting so good. Like every time I think I know what's going on, they throw another twist at me. We're going to another place, another magical situation is going down, and this is like fantasy at its finest. I'm having so much fun reading this. So I'm on the last fourth of the book, I would say, at this point. So many things are going on. Scarlet has been captured, but she's found an ally, or at least someone she thinks can be an ally. She doesn't like fully trust this person, and I'm getting vibes that she shouldn't fully trust this person, but her options are limited at this point. Tella accidentally got married, and we're gonna have to find some sort of a way to fix that situation if possible. The bad guy is moving up his plan, and like all seems to be lost at this point. So I am nervous, but of course, gotta keep reading because I have to figure out what happens. Okay, guys, so I just read the last chapter. I am so happy that I picked this up. I'm gonna be back with my final thoughts. Low-key, I forgot I was filming this video and got like so swept away in the story that I forgot to pause and give updates. But I'm going to give like a spoiler-free summary of each book here in just a second. Alright, so I have officially finished all 3 books in the Caraval series, and what I'm going to do is just give my final thoughts on each of the books, plus like a little spoiler-free summary of what goes on in them. So first and foremost, I loved all 3 of these books. I know that there are just such great additions to my book collection, and that I will be rereading these until the end of time. Characters are top-notch. The character development throughout all 3 books is amazing. The world building is really the start of the show. The plot is good. Each book has its own specific plot, but all of the plots work together to create this big overarching plot, and I think that that is the mark of a good series. So starting off with book 1, Caraval. This series centers around 2 sisters, Scarlet and Donatella Dragna, aka Crimson and Tella. They live on the island of Trisda, which is one of the conquered isles in the Meridian Empire. They live with their father because their mother disappeared when they were very young. Their father is very overbearing and just not a good dude. And so Scarlet kind of takes on the role of protector to her younger sister. The girls are about a year apart, and there is this magical show slash game called Caraval, and it's like basically a traveling circus mixed with this like game of chance. And at the end of Caraval, there's always like this magical prize. So in this world, magic exists, but it's not something like everybody has access to. Certain people have magic. Magic used to be way more prevalent. That'll be more important later on in the series. But so Scarlet has been writing to Legend, which is who is the master of Caraval. He is basically in charge of the whole thing, and she's been writing to him wanting tickets to Caraval because you can only go if you've got a ticket. And she's been writing to him for years with no response. One day she writes to him when she's about to get married and tells him, you know, never mind, it probably wouldn't be a good idea for you to respond to me since I'm about to get married. And then when you know it, 3 tickets show up, one for her sister, and one for her fiance. So Scarlet goes to show her sister the tickets. She finds her sister in the arms of like this dashing sailor who Scarlet just has made up her mind is all sorts of trouble. So Scarlet decides she's not going to Caraval. She doesn't want to risk like angering her father if they get caught trying to leave. You guys remember, like I said, her father is very overbearing, and she has never left. Her and her sister have never left Trisda. The one time she tried to leave, something very horrible happened, and her father made a threat that Scarlet doesn't want to risk him following through on. So Tella is the more daring of the two sisters. She basically hatches this plan with Julian the sailor to get all three of them to Caraval. The plan works, and the girls are swept away in this magical world of Caraval where you don't really know what's real and what's part of the game. And they're separated. The whole plot of this first book is them trying to find their way back to each other. And we basically go along with Scarlet. This first book is told from Scarlet's point of view. We go along with Scarlet as she plays this game and tries to make her way back to her sister. And all sorts of magic and romance and danger and adventure happens in the process. I love the way Stephanie Garber wove this world. I love the characters. Even just the side characters are so fascinating to me. For example, two of the things that she came up with in this book that really stood out to me. The character of Nigel, he is a fortune teller, but he doesn't really tell fortunes in the way that we traditionally think of fortune telling. I don't know why I said it like that, but his body is basically covered in tattoos, and wherever the person's focus draws, whichever tattoo like catches their attention, he can tell their fortune based on where they look, basically on his body. And I thought that was just really cool. I love his character. I love that detail. Also, I loved how I loved the detail of Scarlet's dress. So Scarlet is gifted this magical gown that basically changes, like it transforms based on her mood and the situation, and I just thought that was really cool. I loved watching and seeing the way Scarlet's gown would change. The fashion in this book, in this series as a whole, is like also immaculate, by the way, if you are a fashion lover like me. And I gave this book an overall 4 stars. Book 2 in the series is called Legendary. This book is told from Tella's point of view. So this is after the events of the first Caraval, and we join Tella in Valinda, which is like the capital city. She is there for a special Caraval that is in honor of Empress Elentine, which is like the ruler of this kingdom, and it's to celebrate her birthday. And so the Caraval game is supposed to be special this time. It is made even more special by the fact that it is sort of, we don't really know if it's a game or if it's real this time around. Also, we meet new characters. The most notable new character is Jax, who is not really all that he says he is, or he's kind of, he's hiding something, I'll just say that. And so Tella is the main focus of this book. She's playing the game more so this time, and she finds out, along the way she finds out things about her mother. So remember, her mother has been missing. She finds out her mother is actually alive and that she can save her, but it's going to cost her. And so that's what this whole book is about. The detail in this book that I loved, besides this round of Caraval being super interesting, I loved the city in this book. The city has different, like, I just knocked myself on the head with the book. Anyway, the city has different, like, sections to it, and I loved how each section was super distinct. My favorite part of the city, I think, would be the Temple District. I loved all the different churches and temples and religions and how they were all described and the detail she was able to put into them. And my favorite character in this book was probably Jack's, just, described character in this book. My favorite character in this book was Julian. And then my favorite character to be described in this book was Nigel. And my favorite character described, like the characterization of that character in this book, was Jax. And then my favorite character in this book was Tella. I really did not like Tella as she was described in Caraval. She's just described as very flighty, very selfish. And here, since this book is from her point of view, we get to see more of her layers, and I liked that a lot. This book kind of ends on a cliffhanger. We have a lot of like unanswered questions at the end of this book. The stakes in this book are really high, and it moves so fast. I loved this, and so I rated this book 5 stars. So I liked this one better than the first one, but I liked them both. And so since Legendary ended on a cliffhanger, that brings us right into Finale, which is the last book in the trilogy. It picks up basically right where Legendary left off. So this book alternates points of view, so we get a couple of chapters from Scarlett's point of view, a couple of chapters from Tella's, and the girls are, this is the first time that they're kind of working together towards a common situation. So in Legendary, we get introduced to the concept and characters of the Fates. The Fates are like these ruthless magical beings, sort of like gods. They kind of remind me of portrayals of the Greek gods. They basically used humans as entertainment, and just, they were not very kind gods or whatever, and they used to rule a long time ago. And they were stopped by a witch who trapped them in this deck of cards. They kind of remind me of tarot cards, the way they're described, but they're like fortune telling cards that she trapped the Fates in. So the Fates are in Legendary and Finale, and this book basically tells the story of the two sisters kind of fighting against the Fates. One fate in particular, and this fate has a connection to one of the sisters and to their mother as well. So I loved this book. I'm rating this one 4 stars overall. I like how it kind of tied up a lot of loose ends from the first 2 books. It made the series feel more cohesive, but there were parts of it that moved a little slowly compared to the first 2 books. Favorite thing in this book that was described, I would say I love the concept of the fated places. Like, I love the immortal library. I loved how that was described, and I love the concept of it. Same thing with the map of all, the menagerie. I think the Reverie Key was really cool. My favorite character described in this book was probably Priestess. I think her power is really cool. It's terrifying, but it's cool. Basically, all the Fates have a power. Priestess, her power is when she asks you a question, you have to answer honestly, or you die, basically. So yeah, I loved these books. I don't know how many times I can say that, but I'm so surprised because the series has been around for a while, and I never really cared to pick it up, but I have the first 2 books in Stephanie Garber's other trilogy, the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, but apparently you have to read these books before you go into those 2 books, and I'm so glad that I did. I think those books center around a character that was mentioned in this series, so take with that what you will, but I, for one, am glad that I read Caraval. Perfect for young adult readers, or anybody, because I'm not a young adult, but it's safe if you have like a kid who is getting into reading. I recommend this for fans of like fairy tale like type fantasies. It's not a dark fantasy or anything like that. It's very whimsical and fun. There are life lessons and high stakes. There is romance, but it's not anything, it's very PG. And the main love story here is between, you know, the sisterly love that the two sisters have for each other, but there is romance if you're a fan of romance like me. Yeah, I just really enjoyed this book. I just really enjoyed the series. I loved these books. Like I said, gonna be reading them over and over and over again. And basically anything Stephanie Garber writes now, I want to read it. She's definitely in favorite author territory for me now, and I would love to meet her one day and pick her brain, because the way that she did this was so beautiful and amazing. And that's going to conclude my reading vlog for the Caraval series, which brings this video to an end. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more videos like this, let me know. What should I read next? And I'll catch you guys in my next one. Bye.